The twin suns of Solus Prime cast a relentless, perfect light upon the Aurora Court, here, in the heart of the Aurelian Dominion. Perfection was not an aspiration, it was a mandate. The architecture was grown, not built, crystalline spires reaching for a sky permanently clear. Below them, the Aurelid nobility moved with languid grace. Their turquoise skin seemed to drink the light, and the intricate cranial ridges that denoted their bloodlines pulsed with a soft, internal luminescence. They were the masters of the known galaxy. And then there were the humans. They were the grease in the grand machine. They were the laborers who maintained the lower levels, the mercenaries who fought inconvenient wars, and the archivists who tended to data the Aurelids deemed too trivial to manage. They were tolerated, useful, and utterly beneath notice. Ash Reed was perfectly content with being beneath notice. On the official ledgers, he was a low-grade attendant in the Royal Library, a glorified janitor for the data stacks. He kept his head down, his expression neutral, his presence forgettable. He swept the floors of the archive, calibrated the light filters, and sometimes, when an Aurelid scholar was feeling particularly indulgent, he was permitted to retrieve a physical data slate. This placid exterior was a fortress. Inside, Ash Reed was a creature of cold, patient fire. He was the secret bearer of the mnemonic lattice, an ancient and forbidden network that lived inside his mind. It was not mere technology. It was a weave of psionic code and half-understood mysticism, a relic of a time before the Aurelids imposed their singular, sterile order on the galaxy. The lattice hummed with the ghosts of 1,000 forgotten sciences and 1,000,000 dead memories. It was a weapon, and Ash was honing it for one purpose. His purpose had a name: Noah, his younger sister, brilliant, defiant, and foolishly hopeful that the Dominion could be reformed from within. She had been accused of treason, a charge so transparently false, it was an insult. The trial lasted less than 1 hour. The execution, a public affair, was meant to demonstrate Aurelid justice. Ash had watched from the crowd, his face a mask, while the lattice screamed in his skull, recording every detail, every face, every pulse of light from the executioner's blade. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of scrubbing floors, 5 years of bowing and scraping, 5 years of sharpening his mind and the lattice into a razor's edge, waiting for one single, impossible chance. Today was the day of the sacred combat. It was an ancient, rarely invoked tradition, a relic from a more vibrant and chaotic Aurelid past. Once every solar cycle, any citizen of the Dominion, regardless of species or station, could issue a challenge. If they defeated a champion appointed by the court, the Empress herself was bound by unbreakable oath to grant the victor one impossible wish. It was mostly theater. The challengers were always disgruntled, Aurelid nobles with petty grievances, and the champions were high-born knights who toyed with them before a swift, decisive victory. The grand hall of the Aurora Court was packed. Empress Seraphine Kale sat upon the sunstone throne. She was young for an Aurelid ruler, her diadem of living light pulsing with a steady, serene rhythm. Her face was beautiful and severe, trapped in the amber of her station. Beside her, hawk-like and still, stood High Chancellor Severin. His own cranial ridges were barely visible, his skin a paler shade of turquoise. He was the architect of the Dominion's current, rigid peace, the royal herald, his voice booming with synthesized perfection, called for the challenger. A silence settled, expectant and bored. "I am here," a voice said. The voice was human. It was calm. It was not loud, yet it cut through the murmuring acoustics of the hall. Every head turned. Ash Reed stepped from the shadows of a service archway. He wore his simple, gray archivist's tunic, smudged with coolant fluid. He was not large, nor did he carry a weapon. He looked, to the assembled nobility, like a piece of refuse that had blown in by mistake. A ripple of laughter, delicate and cruel, passed through the Aurelid lords. High Chancellor Severin did not laugh. His eyes, cold and dark, narrowed by a fraction of a degree. "The human attendant," the herald announced, his voice dripping with disdain. "You know the law, you challenge the court." "I do," Ash said, walking forward. He stopped at the edge of the combat circle, a shimmering expanse of inscribed flooring. "And you know the price of failure." "I do," Ash said. The price was death. It meant nothing to him. He was already dead. The champion entered from the opposite side. He was just as Ash had expected. A 7-foot-tall knight of the Imperial Aegis, encased in gleaming power armor. A plasma lance hummed in his grip. He was a walking fortress, the pinnacle of Aurelid martial technology. "The knight," his voice a metallic growl from his helmet's speaker. "This is a mockery. Leave now, little man, and I will ask the Empress to be merciful." Ash smiled. It was a small, dry thing that held no humor. "Let's get this over with." The gong sounded. The knight charged, his armored boots shaking the floor. He was a meteor of turquoise and gold. The plasma lance aimed to incinerate. Ash did not move. He waited. The lattice in his mind was no longer humming. It was singing. It slowed time, painting the knight's charge in 1,000 shades of probability. Ash saw the overextension of the right shoulder, the slight, predictable shift in the armor's hip gimbal, the flicker of the targeting laser that preceded the lance's discharge by 2.3 milliseconds. At the last possible instant, Ash moved. He did not dodge. He flowed. He moved inside the arc of the lance, his hand, hardened by years of gripping tools and data slates, striking the knight's wrist, not the armor, but the one place where the joint servo was exposed. There was a crack of displaced energy, and a howl of mechanics. The plasma lance clattered to the floor, its beam extinguishing. The court gasped. The knight bellowed in rage, his left gauntlet swinging in a backhand blow that could shatter stone. Ash was already gone. He used the knight's own momentum against him, sliding under the blow. He had studied the ancient human arts, texts the Aurelids had deemed primitive and inefficient. He knew about leverage, joint manipulation, and nerve clusters. He drove his elbow into the unarmored space behind the knight's knee. The leg buckled. The knight stumbled, roaring, trying to bring his massive weight to bear. Ash was a phantom, a whisper of gray cloth against gleaming armor. He was not fighting the armor. He was fighting the man inside it. He used a discarded ceremonial banner pole, wedging it into the knight's ankle joint, and then rolled, applying pressure in a way the power suit was never designed to counter. The knight fell. He crashed to the crystalline floor with the sound of a collapsing building. He was a mess of locked servos and broken pride, completely immobilized. The fight had lasted 48 seconds. Silence. The entire Aurora court, 1,000 highborn Aurelids, stared in absolute, stunned disbelief. A human janitor had just dismantled their finest champion. Ash Reed stood, breathing evenly. He was unharmed. He looked up at the throne. Empress Seraphine Kale rose slowly from her seat. Her face was pale. Her composure cracked. She was bound by the oath. The law was the law. "You have won the sacred combat," she said, her voice clear and carrying. "The law is absolute. The impossible wish is yours. Name it. Ash Reed, human of Earth." Ash walked toward the throne, ignoring the looks of hatred and astonishment. He stopped at the foot of the dais. He met the Empress's gaze. "Most radiant Empress," he said, his voice respectful but devoid of fear. My wish is this: I wish to hold my right. I will not name my impossible wish today. I will name it at a time and place of my own choosing." The court exploded. Shouts of heresy and impossible echoed through the hall. This was not in the script. This was not the law. High Chancellor Severin stepped forward, his face a mask of cold fury. "Empress, this is a clear violation. The wish is granted. It is named. It is done. The ritual cannot be left incomplete. This human mocks the throne." Ash did not look at Severin. He kept his eyes on the Empress. Seraphine Kale raised one slender, turquoise hand. The court fell silent. She looked down at the human who had just broken every rule. She was a prisoner of her laws, but she was also intelligent. She saw the game being played. "The ancient texts," she said, her voice thoughtful, "bind me to grant the wish. They do not, however, specify a time frame for its naming." She turned her gaze on Severin, and for a moment, Ash saw a spark of steel beneath the serene facade. "The request is irregular, but it is not unlawful. The wish is his. He may call it when he chooses." She looked back at Ash. "Your request is granted." In that moment, as her authority settled over the hall, their eyes truly met, and the mnemonic lattice in Ash's mind flared. It was not a thought. It was a jolt, a pure, unmediated contact. The lattice, designed to connect, to network, to feel other systems, reached out. It brushed against the intricate, glowing diadem the Empress wore. Her protocol diadem, the court called it, a symbol of her office. Ash felt a sudden, dizzying wave of another's consciousness, an ocean of duty, a crushing loneliness, a suffocating weight of responsibility. He heard a voice in his head, a voice that was not his own, clear as a bell. "Who are you?" The contact was blinding. He could not stop his own reflexive, unspoken thought from answering her. A ghost. He saw her eyes widen. He knew she had heard him. The connection snapped, severed by their mutual shock, leaving Ash breathless and the Empress visibly shaken. She took a half step back, her hand going to her diadem. Ash lowered his head, breaking the gaze, the ghost of her mind still echoing in his. He had just made an enemy of the most powerful man in the court, and, entirely by accident, forged a terrifying, intimate link with the Empress herself. This was not part of the plan. He bowed. "I thank the Empress for her wisdom." He turned and walked out of the hall, the silence of 1,000 aurelids following him like a shroud. Ash did not return to his public-facing quarters. He went deep, down into the service tunnels below the archives, to a forgotten maintenance hub he had slowly, painstakingly converted into a private sanctuary and command center. He was the most talked about being in the galaxy, and he had less than 1 hour before Severin's agents came for him. The victory in the hall was just the opening move. The real war was about to begin. He activated his console, bypassing the official court network and sinking into the dark channels he and Noah used to navigate. He needed to know what Severin was protecting. The High Chancellor's reaction had been too fast, too controlled. He was afraid. Ash thought of the confluence. The grand ceremony was just weeks away, a gathering of every allied species to celebrate 100 years of Aurelid peace. At its center was Severin's magnum opus, the Harmony Engine. Publicly, it was a marvel. A vast telepathic choir designed to soothe diplomatic tensions, to create a unison of understanding among disparate species. It was Severin's promise of a future free from conflict. Ash, like Noah, had always believed it was a lie. The lattice in his mind was a key, and for 5 years he had been searching for the lock. He had been sifting through Severin's encrypted communications, piece by piece, assembling a puzzle of whispers and fragmented orders. His victory today had been a gamble, a loud, public distraction to make Severin tighten his security, to make him move his most precious secrets. It worked. A new data packet, triple encrypted and routed through a black channel, was moving from Severin's personal server to an off-world location. Ash, his fingers flying across the holographic interface, deployed the lattice. He did not break the encryption. He became the encryption. The lattice resonated with the code, tasting its shape, its logic, until it found the flaw and slipped inside. The file decrypted. It was not a long message. It was a single operational directive. Ash read it. The cold, patient fire inside him turned into a glacier. The Harmony engine was not a tool of peace. It was a weapon of absolute control. Severin was not planning to unify the species. He was planning to synchronize them, to overwrite their free will with a single, dominant command. And the first synchronization, the one that would legitimize his new order, was scheduled for the confluence. The target Empress, Seraphine Kale. Severin was going to use the Harmony engine to bind the Empress's mind, to enslave her thoughts, and make her his willing puppet. With her apparent blessing, he would have the legal and moral authority to impose his harmony on every other species in the Dominion. Ash looked at the directive again, his blood running cold. It was signed by the same military tribunal that had condemned his sister. He finally understood. Noah had not been executed for simple treason. She had been executed because she had gotten too close to this. She had discovered the truth about the Harmony engine. Ash leaned back, the weight of it all settling on him. The impossible wish he had just won. The psychic connection to the Empress he had accidentally forged. The monstrous plan of the man who had murdered his sister. It was not revenge he felt. It was clarity. A terrible, absolute clarity. He could not just avenge Noah. He had to finish her work. He would use the impossible wish. He would use the mnemonic lattice. He would use the bond he shared with the Empress, whether she liked it or not. He would tear down Severin's Harmony engine. He would expose the rot at the heart of the Dominion, and he would burn Severin's New World Order to the ground. Ash Reed, the human janitor, the ghost in the machine, closed his eyes. The lattice pulsed, slow and steady, like the beating of a hidden heart. The game had begun. A target painted on his back was an inconvenience. Working alone was a death sentence. Ash Reed needed a team, and the galaxy's official channels did not stock the requisite blend of skill, desperation, and moral flexibility. He started in the shadowed underbelly of Solace Prime, a place the crystalline spires pretended did not exist. His first call was to a woman who lived in the static between shipping manifests. Tamsin Gray was the best smuggler pilot in the sector, a human who had carved a life from the Dominion's blind spots. She ran contraband, data, and occasionally desperate people. Her ship, the Stray Dog, was a patchwork of mismatched engines and overpowered shields, much like its captain. Ash found her in a low-orbit dive bar, a place that smelled of stale air and synthetic whiskey. Tamsin was lean, her dark hair pulled back in a practical tail. She was laughing over a game of chance, her eyes bright with a dangerous, practical mirth. When she saw Ash, her smile did not falter, but her eyes went cold. "Ash Reed," she said, her voice a low drawl. "The ghost of the archives. Or, should I say, the giant killer of the Aurora Court. You have caused a stir. My friend, I am charging double for cargo just to cover the new security patrols you inspired." "I need a pilot," Ash said, sliding onto the stool opposite her. He ignored the stares. His face was now the most famous human visage in the Dominion. "You need an extraction," Tamsin countered, leaning in. "Severin's pet inquisitors are tearing the human quarter apart looking for you. For a 10% premium. I can have you in the Outer Rim by tomorrow." "I am not running," Ash said. Tamsin's amusement faded. She studied his face. "No, you are not. Are you? That is problematic. What precisely are you doing?" "I am pulling a thread," Ash said, "to see what unravels. I need a ship that can fly deaf and blind if it has to, and a pilot who knows how to break laws without breaking her word." "That is a very poetic way of saying, 'commit treason,'" she said. "I am expensive, and I am not suicidal." "Noah thought you were a good person," Ash said quietly. The name hit her like a physical blow. Tamsin's face hardened. She and Noah had run in similar circles, the small, tight-knit community of humans who were smart enough to be angry. "That is a low blow, Reed." "It is the truth," Ash said. "I am going after Severin. I am going after the Harmony engine. Noah died for it. I am not going to let her death be for nothing." You in Tamsin held his gaze for a long 10 seconds. Finally, she let out a slow breath and tossed her winnings on the table. "My rates for avenging martyrs are triple, and I get to make fun of your clothes." She stood. "My ship is my mind, but there is a second mind you need, one that knows the ship." She led him to the stray dog's cockpit. It was cramped and clean. "Halcyon!" Tamsin called out. "We have a guest. Try not to insult his parentage." A rich, baritone voice, brimming with aristocratic confidence, and a faint echo filled the cockpit. "My dear Captain, I would never, though judging by his neural static. This gentleman appears to be carrying a significant mental burden, and he smells faintly of old books and righteous indignation. How utterly charming." A holographic projector flickered, revealing the bust of a man with an impeccably waxed mustache and the full dress uniform of a 19th century Earth naval captain. This was Halcyon, an ancient, unshackled ship intelligence Tamsin had liberated from a derelict cruiser. "This is Ash Reed," Tamsin said. "He is our new patron." "Ah, the bibliophile gladiator." Halcyon boomed. "A splendid performance. Sir, a wonderful bit of theater. I do love it when the rigging comes down on the mainmast. Very dramatic." "Halcyon thinks he is a pirate gentleman," Tamsin explained, already checking her fuel readouts. "I am a privateer of the digital seas, Captain," Halcyon corrected sniffily. "We are embarking on a quest. Are we not a grand, dangerous folly? Excellent. My processors are tingling." "We need one more person from the inside," Ash said, ignoring the AI's theatrics. "Someone in the palace." "That is where you are wrong," a new voice said. Ash spun. The man who spoke was already in the stray dog's cargo hold, having slipped aboard while Tamsin was fetching Ash. He was tall, wearing the silver and turquoise armor of the Imperial Aegis, his helmet off. His face was sharp, defined by a rigid code of honor that was currently at war with his disgust. Orin Hale. He had been Noah's friend. He had been the one to slip Ash a data chip containing the censored report of Noah's trial. "Orin," Ash said, his voice tight. "You are a fool, Ash," Orin said flatly. He did not look like a man joining a rebellion. He looked like a man reporting for a deeply unpleasant duty. "You think you can just walk out of the court after that performance? I have spent the last 12 hours diverting patrols that have kill-on-sight orders." "You are helping me?" Ash asked, suspicious. "I am helping Noah," Orin corrected, his gaze unwavering. "She asked me to look out for you. Said you were brilliant but had a martyr complex. I failed her. I will not fail her again. I am her debt. Ash. And I am here to pay it. Tamsin whistled, low and appreciative. A palace guard with a conscience and a death wish. This is getting better and better. All we need is a wise old man. We have one of those too, Ash said. Archivist Morell was the oldest human in the Royal Library. He had served for 60 years. A stooped, quiet man with eyes that had seen too much data to be surprised by anything. He was the one who had first recognized the signs of the mnemonic lattice activating in Ash years ago. Morell had found Ash in the service tunnels. Just as Ash was preparing to leave for Tamsin's bar, the old man had simply been there, holding a data slate. "You are a fool, young Ash," Morell had said, his voice a dry rustle. It seemed to be the consensus. "Morell," Ash had acknowledged. "You think you are the first to bear that burden." Morell gestured to Ash's head. "The lattice. It is not a tool. It is a parasite. It feeds on obsession. It amplifies. It burns." "It is all I have," Ash said. "No. It is what Noah left you," Morell said, his old eyes sharp. "She triggered its transfer to you before she was taken. I helped her. She thought you were the only one strong enough to control it. She was wrong. You are using it for revenge." "I am using it for justice." "Do not lie in a library, boy," Morell snapped. "I have read the original manifests. The lattice was not designed to be a weapon. It was a bridge, a way to share, to connect, to understand. You are using it as a cudgel." He had pressed the data slate into Ash's hands. "She did not die so you could become a killer. She died so you could become a shield. Remember that. This slate contains the original schematics for the Harmony engine. Not the public ones, but the ones Severin has buried. You will need them if you are to avoid getting us all killed. Now go. And try not to be an idiot." With Morell's warning echoing in his mind, Orin's grim presence at his back, and Tamsin and Halcyon's bickering filling the cockpit, Ash had his team. Their first target was the source of Severin's power. It was not just the Harmony engine. It was the religion he had built around it, the Purity Order. It had started as a fringe philosophy, an Aurelid cultural movement decrying the noise and chaos of the other species. Severin, with his immense political power, had elevated it. He had funded it, given it legitimacy, and transformed it into a state-sponsored religion. Its creed was simple. The Aurelid mind, in its pure, focused state, was the divine. All other thought was discord. The Harmony engine was not just a political tool. It was their holy instrument, the tool that would bring about the Great Unison. "They are Severin's true army," Orin explained, his voice tight as they huddled in the stray dog's shielded hold, now parked in a hidden tunnel beneath the city. "They are not just soldiers. They are zealots. They believe in what he is doing. They are the ones who patrol the Vault of Choirs." "The Vault of Choirs," Ash said, looking at Morell's stolen schematics. "That is where the engine is housed." "It is a fortress," Orin said. "Impenetrable." "Nothing is impenetrable," Tamsin said, chewing on a ration bar. "It just requires the right application of high explosives." "No," Ash said, his eyes tracing the data paths. "Tamsin is right, but not about the explosives. We are not going in to destroy it. Not yet. I need to get inside. I need to listen to it." "Listen to it?" Orin looked appalled. "Ash, it is a psychic weapon. That is like listening to the heart of a star." "The lattice can shield me," Ash said. I need to know what it is really doing. The schematics are not enough." The infiltration was a nightmare of precision. Orin used his clearance to get them to the lower levels. Tamsin, and Halcyon ran a high-speed data decoy through the city's traffic grid, pulling security patrols away on a wild goose chase. "Tally-ho, gentlemen!" Halcyon's voice boomed over their private comms. "We are leading them on a merry chase. They seem frightfully cross about it." Ash and Doran moved through the service corridors, shadows in a complex of gleaming, sterile crystal. The Vault of Choirs was not a building. It was a vast, subterranean cavern, and the Harmony engine was not a machine. It was a living thing. It was a cathedral of glowing, organic-looking pods, thousands of them, suspended in a matrix of light, and in the center, a colossal pulsating sphere of liquid crystal that was the core. "What is this?" Orin whispered, horrified. "The choir," Ash said, his voice grim. The lattice was already screaming in his head, a high-frequency warning. The air thrummed, not with sound, but with a palpable psychic pressure. "This is the Purity Order's holiest place," Orin said. "This is where they commune." "I have to get closer," Ash said. He moved to a terminal, Orin covering their approach. Ash placed his hands on the console, not to hack it, but to touch the system. He closed his eyes and let the lattice unfurl. He did not just connect to the network. He sank his mind into the very hum of the engine. He expected to hear a chorus, a symphony of minds. He did not. He heard a single, deafening, monotonous tone. It was the sound of a billion voices being flattened, smoothed out, and compressed into one note. It was the sound of silence, weaponized. And then he felt the other part, the active part, a dark, hungry, swirling vortex at the edge of the system. It was a psychic disposal, a void. "My God," Ash breathed, pulling his hands back as if burned. He stumbled, the world tilting. Orin caught him. "Ash, what did you see?" "It is not a unifier," Ash whispered, his heart hammering with a new kind of terror. "It does not just synchronize, it erases. Dissent. Disagreement. Anything that is not part of the harmony. It takes those thoughts and it destroys them. It feeds them into that void." He had seen what Severin meant by peace. It was not unity. It was annihilation. It was the peace of the grave. The revelation left him shaken. The scope of Severin's plan was more monstrous than he could have imagined, and it brought a new, chilling clarity to his accidental contact with the Empress. He had to warn her. He had to know if she was a part of this, or if she was, as his gut told him, just another prisoner. He used the library. It was the one place he knew he could go, the one place he still had access to. He went in the dead of night, in his old archivist's tunic, a ghost returning to his haunt. He sat in the vast, silent archive, surrounded by the sleeping data of 1,000 worlds. And he waited. He let the lattice reach out, not as a weapon, but as a whisper. He focused on the memory of her mind, that brief, shocking touch in the throne room. He called her name in the silence of his skull. Seraphine. For a long time there was nothing. Then, a flicker, a hesitant, terrified, and powerful mind brushing against his. "Who are you?" The voice was the same one he had heard before, but now it was not just a question. It was a demand. "My name is Ash Reed." He projected the thought, shaping it with all the control he had. "I am the man who won the sacred combat. I am in the Royal Library. You are in danger." A pause. Then, a surge of cold, imperial fury. You dare touch my mind. This is treason, Ava. This is a warning." Ash sent, cutting her off. He pushed the memory of the Harmony engine at her, the feel of that single, flat, deafening tone, the feel of the void that consumed all other thoughts. This is what your High Chancellor is building. This is the peace he intends to bring. He is going to use it on you first. He felt her recoil, a wave of pure, visceral disbelief. No, it is a tool of unity. It is to end the factionalism. It is for the good of the Dominion. He is going to enslave you. Ash pushed, his own anger rising. He is going to break your will and turn you into a puppet to legitimize his new order. He is going to erase you. He felt her mind falter. He felt the cracks in her certainty. He felt the crushing loneliness he had sensed before. The isolation of a young woman on a throne, surrounded by vipers. Why she finally sent, her mental voice small, stripped of its imperial power. Why are you telling me this? You are a human. You have every reason to hate us. You challenged the throne. I did not challenge you, Ash replied, his own mental voice softening, the anger draining away, leaving only the cold ache of his own loss. I challenged him. The man who murdered my sister. The man who is going to destroy everything you have sworn to protect unless you stop him. Silence stretched between them, a vast digital gulf. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, colder, but not at him. I am a prisoner, she sent. The admission was a shard of glass. His purity order controls the Aegis. His laws bind my hands. He has cornered me. Then we uncorner you, Ash replied. I have the wish. He cannot move against me publicly without breaking the most sacred law of your people. But I cannot use it yet. Not until I have the last piece. What piece? The key to the engine. The core. I can stop it. But I need your help. He felt her decision. It was not trust. Not yet. It was a convergence of desperate interests. A pact. What do you need? Everything you have on the Purity Order's recruitment. Severin is not just building a machine. He is building an army. I need to know where. The data flowed into his mind a moment later. A flood of reports, manifests, and locations transferred from the Empress's diadem directly to his lattice. It was her entire secret file on Severin's activities. Be careful. Ash read. She sent. Her mental signature was already withdrawing, pulling back behind her imperial shields. He is more dangerous than you know. He believes he is righteous. So do I, Ash replied. The connection was gone. Ash sat in the darkness of the library, the Empress's data burning in his mind. He was no longer just a man seeking revenge. He was a conspirator, allied with the very throne he had seemingly defied. The data Seraphine had provided led Ash back to the human slums, the sprawling and neglected sectors that clung to the edges of Solace Prime. The Purity Order was not just for Aurelids. It was actively recruiting humans, disenfranchised, poor, and desperate humans. He and Orin moved through the crowded streets, hoods drawn. Ash was tracking a high-frequency psychic resonance, a faint echo of the Harmony engine's terrible flat note. He found its source in a repurposed warehouse, hidden behind a Purity Order soup kitchen. They were not recruiting soldiers. They were recruiting children. Ash watched from a rusted gantry, his stomach clenching. He saw a dozen human children, none older than 10, sitting in a circle on the floor. A robed Purity Order priest was leading them in a meditation. The priest wore a small, technical device on his temple. It was a portable version of the engine. The priest was not teaching them to meditate. He was calming them. He was flattening their minds, their laughter, their fears, their chaotic human energy, and recording the resulting blankness. What is this? Orin whispered, his hand tightening on his weapon. It is a background chorus, Ash said, his voice raw with a sudden, suffocating guilt. The engine needs a bass line, a voice of the people to build its harmony on. Severin is using the minds of children, an entire generation, as the foundation for his weapon. This was a new depth of depravity. This was not just control. It was defilement. Ash thought of Noah, of her fierce, passionate, chaotic mind. And he looked at these children, being taught to erase themselves. His own silence, his 5 years of quiet, patient waiting, suddenly felt like complicity. He had been so focused on his own pain, his own plan, that he had not seen the rot spreading right here, in his own community. This, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, ends now. They were pulling back, the information secured. When Severin made his next move, every public screen, every data slate, every private console in Solace Prime lit up with an emergency broadcast. High Chancellor Severin's face appeared, his expression one of grave, paternal concern. "Citizens of the Dominion," he began, his voice resonating with false sincerity. "It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you of a growing threat. A conspiracy, born of chaos and envy, seeks to undermine our upcoming confluence." An image of Ash's face, taken from the sacred combat, flashed on the screen. This human, Ash Reed, is the leader of a violent terrorist cell. He and his collaborators, disillusioned humans fueled by species hatred, seek to destroy the Harmony engine and plunge our dominion back into the darkness of war. Orin cursed, long and low. "He is painting us as monsters." "He is preparing the public," Ash said, his eyes glued to the screen. "He is giving them a reason to fear humans. He is building the narrative for his crackdown. He is accelerating the timeline." "My friends," Severin concluded, "the confluence will proceed as planned. The harmony of our great dominion will not be threatened by the discordant few. Be vigilant. Report any suspicious activity. The purity of our shared will shall protect us." The broadcast ended. The die was cast. They regrouped on the stray dog, the atmosphere thick with tension. "So," Tamsin said, leaning back in her pilot's chair, "we are officially terrorists now. That is going to make docking complicated. Halcyon, how are our frightfully cross friends? They have escalated from cross to positively apoplectic. Captain." The AI's voice boomed. "There is a capital warrant out for this vessel, and everyone on it. I must say, it is rather exciting." "This is not exciting," Orin growled, pacing the cargo hold. "He has checked us. He controls the media, the military, and the religion. We are 5 people and a flamboyant computer." "6, Ash said. They all looked at him. "6, Ash repeated, looking at the schematics Morel had given him, now overlaid with the data from Seraphine. "He has made a mistake. He has pushed too fast. He has shown his hand." "How?" Orin demanded. "He thinks I am going to try to destroy the engine," Ash said. "He is protecting it. But he does not know about my true weapon." He tapped the ancient text of the sacred combat, which he had projected on the main console. "The impossible wish," Tamsin said. "The one you so cleverly put in your back pocket." "It is a legal bomb," Ash said. "The law is ancient. It predates the Purity Order. It predates Severin. It is bound to the Empress's own life force. If I make my wish, and she legitimizes it, not even Severin can stop it without declaring open civil war." "So what is the wish?" Tamsin asked. "I will demand the complete, public, and immediate audit and dismantling of the Harmony engine. based on the charge that it violates the sanctity of individual thought, Ash said. He will never allow it, Orin argued. He will not have a choice. The law binds the Empress to grant it, and she will, Ash said, thinking of his secret conversation with her. But it is not that simple. The wish is the bomb, but it needs two things to detonate. He pointed to the schematic of the engine. It needs a target. This, the cord seed. It is the heart of the engine, the core component that regulates the harmony. If I can get my hands on it, I can prove what it is doing. It is the physical evidence. And the second thing, Tamsin asked. Ash looked at the image of the Empress. It needs a detonator. The wish is only law if it is sealed by the Empress's royal blood. It needs her in person to willingly and publicly activate it. So, Tamsin summarized, ticking the points off on her fingers. We need to break into the most secure building in the galaxy. Again, to steal a magic space rock. Then, we need to waltz into the confluence, which will be crawling with Severin's fanatics, and convince the Empress to publicly commit treason against her own High Chancellor, all while we are the most wanted terrorists in the Dominion. Yes, Ash said. I am going to need more fuel, Tamsin said. Oh, splendid. Halcyon's voice rang out. A heist, a political crisis, and a royal entanglement. This shall be our finest performance yet. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal, which Tamsin Gray claimed were her favorite kind. It was a two-pronged assault, a symphony of chaos and stealth. So, let me ensure my processors are correctly aligned. Halcyon's aristocratic voice filled the stray dog's cockpit. My dear captain and I are to perform the orbital ruckus, a maneuver designed to convince the Solace Prime home fleet that a shipment of particularly aggressive and entirely fictional space eels has broken containment above the planetary ecliptic. You are a diversion, Halcyon, Ash said, checking the power cell on his data breaker. He, Orin, and Morell were in the cargo bay, attired in dark, non-reflective stealth suits. You just need to be loud and impossible to ignore for exactly 20 minutes. My dear boy, Halcyon huffed, his holographic mustache twitching. I am always impossible to ignore. I shall create a sensor mirage of such bewildering complexity that the entire Aegis Command will be questioning their sanity. It shall be my masterpiece of misdirection. Just try not to get us all blown up. You magnificent bag of gas, Tamsin said, her fingers dancing across her console, bringing the stray dog's engines to a low, predatory hum. We are wheels up. Orin, keep your knight in shining armor antics to a minimum. Morell, try not to die of old age. Ash, just try not to get us all killed. With a jolt, the stray dog slipped from its hidden tunnel, ascending into the planet's busy traffic lanes. Phase 1, Ash said, his voice grim. Orin, Morell, let's go. Archivist Morell was not a field agent. He was a creature of dust and data, and the rapid, silent movement through the palace's restricted zones was clearly taking its toll. Yet, the old man did not complain. He moved with a grim determination, his frail body fueled by a quiet, scholarly rage. Orin was the opposite. He was a specter of lethal grace, his Aegis armor now painted a matte, sensor-absorbent black. He was a ghost in his own home, moving them past guard patrols with a terrifying, intimate knowledge of their roots. Severin has doubled the guard, Orin whispered, his voice a flat line over their private comm. They are all purity order, fanatics. Be ready. The choir sanctum was deeper than the vault they had previously entered. This was the Holy of Holies, the place where the core of the Harmony engine was prepared and sanctified. To reach it, they had to pass through the main atrium of the Purity Order's temple. The atrium was vast, cold, and unnervingly beautiful. The crystalline walls refracted the light of the twin suns into a single, pure, white glow. There was no art, no statues, only a perfect, chilling symmetry. And in the center, waiting for them as if she had been expecting them, stood a woman. She was Aurelid, tall and poised, dressed in the stark white robes of a high priestess. Her turquoise skin was pale, her cranial ridges pulsing with a slow, hypnotic light. She was beautiful, but it was the beauty of a freshly sharpened blade. "The ghost of the archives," she said. Her voice was a melody, but it held no warmth. "And the traitor knight, and the librarian. Severin said you would be foolish. I had not realized he meant it so literally." "Get out of our way," Orin growled, his hand moving to his sidearm. "Peace, Orin Hale," the woman said, raising a hand. "Violence is the language of the chaotic. Here, we speak only of unity." "Nix Caldera," Morel breathed, his voice tight with a mixture of fear and awe. "The right hand of the High Chancellor, the voice of the Order." "I am a believer, archivist," Nix said, her dark eyes settling on Ash. "I believe in a galaxy free of the pain of dissent. I believe in the clean, perfect peace of the single song. What you are doing, it is not just treason. It is a sin against that peace. You are trying to bring back the noise." "The noise, as you call it," Ash said, his voice low, "is called free will. You are building a prison for 1,000,000,000,000 minds, and you are calling it a church." The mnemonic lattice in his head was thrumming, reacting to her. He could feel her mind. It was a fortress, smooth, polished, and utterly closed. She was not just a believer. She was a true, unshakable zealot. "You speak of freedom," Nick said, a trace of pity in her voice. "But you have no idea what freedom is. It is the heavy, agonizing burden of choice. It is the sickness of uncertainty. The Harmony Engine is not a prison. It is the ultimate mercy. It is the cure. We are offering salvation, and you, Ash Reed, are the plague." "We are done talking," Orin said, and lunged. Nix Caldera did not flinch. She simply raised her hand, and 2 Purity Order guards, previously invisible in their own stealth armor, materialized from the shadows, their energy batons crackling. Orin met them in a clash of black armor and white robes. It was a brutal, contained ballet. Ash grabbed Morel. "Now, Halcyon," Ash yelled into his comm. "We are engaged." "Ah, the festivities have begun," the AI's voice replied, oddly clear even in the midst of the chaos. "I am currently engaged in a rather spirited debate with a very humorless battlecruiser captain about the finer points of interstellar shipping law. I will endeavor to provide supporting fire." As if on cue, the entire temple shuddered. The lights flickered as a proximity alert shrieked from the ceiling. On the far wall, a holographic map showed the stray dog screaming through the upper atmosphere. A squadron of Aegis fighters in hot pursuit. "He is drawing them off," Orin yelled, slamming an armored elbow into a guard's helmet. "Go!" Ash and Morel ran, leaving Orin to hold the line. They sprinted down a long, crystal corridor, alarms blaring. "This way," Morel panted, pushing Ash toward a data conduit. "The cord seed is in the resonance chamber. It is just beyond this nexus." "Gentlemen, a piece of advice," Halcyon's voice suddenly blared. Not just in their comms, but over the temple's entire internal address system. Ash had no idea how he had done it. While a direct confrontation with a superior foe is undeniably bracing, one must consider the virtues of a strategic, shall we say, advance to the rear. It is not cowardice if one does it with flair. The purity guards in the corridor ahead of them stopped, confused, looking at the ceiling speakers. He hacked the entire temple, Ash said. A split second of disbelief cutting through his tension. The man has style, Morell admitted, his fingers flying over the security panel. The door hissed open. The resonance chamber was small, and the cord seed was at its center. It was a piece of flawless, black crystal, the size of a human heart, levitating in a containment field. It seemed to drink the light in the room, and it was pulsing with a slow, dark rhythm. "That is it," Morell said. "It is the blueprint, the master frequency for the entire engine." Ash stepped forward, reaching for the containment controls. "I do not think so. Blasphemer." Nyx Caldera stood in the doorway they had just entered. She was alone. Orin was not with her. A cold dread washed over Ash. "Your friend is contained," Nyx said calmly. "He fought well, for a man clinging to a broken ideology." "Where is he?" Ash demanded, the lattice in his head flaring with sudden, hot anger. "He is being held for purification. As will you be." She stepped into the room. She held no weapon. She was the weapon. "Give me the seed. Do not make this painful." "You have no idea what painful is," Ash said. He unleashed the lattice. He did not punch or kick. He pushed. He grabbed the ambient code of the room, the door controls, the light filters, the security sensors, and he bent them. With a shriek of tortured metal, a nearby maintenance panel tore free from the wall and hurled itself at Nyx. She moved with liquid speed, dodging the projectile, but she was not prepared for the follow-up. Ash had slammed the door controls, sealing them in. Then he reversed the polarity on the containment field. The cord seed, instead of being held, was expelled. It shot out of its housing like a bullet. Ash dove, catching it in his gloved hand. It was cold, and it vibrated with a sickening, flat power. "You cannot win," Nyx hissed, her calm finally breaking. She ran at him, her hand, now crackling with a personal bioelectric field, aimed at his chest. Ash had no time to dodge. But Morell did. The old archivist, with a sudden, desperate strength, slammed a fire suppression canister into the back of Nyx's knee. She cried out, her leg buckling, and her energy-charged hand struck the wall, blasting a smoking, molten crater in the crystal. "Go!" "Fuh!" Morell screamed, shoving Ash toward a ventilation shaft. "Go! The data is all that matters." "Morell!" "No, I am not leaving you," Ash yelled. "I told you not to be an idiot, boy." Morell shouted, his old face a mask of furious sacrifice. He turned to face Nyx, who was rising, her eyes burning with righteous fury. "I have been silent for too long. This is my penance." Morell, but Nyx was on him. Ash, his heart breaking, scrambled into the shaft. The cord seed clutched in his hand. He could hear the sounds of the fight, a sickening crackle, and then a terrible, final silence. He ran, crawling through the metal guts of the palace, the alarms, the shouts, and Halcyon's distant, booming voice fading behind him. He was alone. He was trapped, and he was failing. He found himself in a dark, forgotten maintenance junction, the walls pressing in. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts, his stealth suit torn. He was lost. The patrols were closing in. He could hear their boots. He was going to die here, in the dark, of failure. Noah's sacrifice, Morell's sacrifice, Orin's capture. All for nothing. Desperate, he closed his eyes. He reached out with the lattice, not to the system, but to the one mind he knew was listening. Seraphine. He did not beg. He did not plead. He just sent his raw, unfiltered desperation. I am trapped. Sub-level 4. Maintenance junction Theta. He has Orin. He has Morel. But I have the seed. He felt her mind touch his. A jolt of startled, cold panic. You're insane. You are in the heart of the palace. He is killing them all. Ash sent. The image of Morel's face searing his mind. I am next. You have to choose. Now. He heard the patrol stop, right outside his junction. He heard their voices. The signal is in here. Open it. The junction wall beside him, a blank, seamless expanse of polished stone, suddenly hissed. A hairline crack appeared, widening into a dark, narrow opening. A shadow door. Go, her mental voice commanded, tight with terror. Now! Do not stop until you are clear. Ash did not hesitate. He threw himself into the darkness as the patrol burst into the junction behind him. The door sealed, plunging him into absolute blackness. He was in an ancient, unlit passage, the air thick with the dust of centuries. He ran, guided only by the faint, terrified echo of Seraphine's mind, a lighthouse in his skull. The passage led him out into the old, abandoned levels of the library, his own territory. He made it back to the stray dog's hiding place just as Tamsin was firing her engines, preparing for a suicidal rescue run. He all but fell into the cargo bay, covered in grime and blood, holding the black crystal. Where are Orin and Morel? Tamsin demanded, her face pale. Gone, Ash said, his voice hollow. Severin has them. The silence on the ship was heavier than any gravity. Well, Tamsin said, her voice rough. That was, expensive. Was it worth it? Ash placed the cord seed on the console. It hummed, a flat, evil sound. For the next 2 hours, Ash and Tamsin, with Halcyon's processing power, did not speak. They worked. Ash connected the lattice to the seed, not to control it, but to read it, to translate the malevolent code stored within. And they found it, the full plan, not just the memos and whispers, but the final operational directive. It had a name, Himfall. It is a wave, Tamsin said, her voice barely a whisper, her usual sarcasm gone, replaced by a cold horror. He is not just going to erase dissent. He is targeting a specific genetic sequence. Human, Ash said, his face gray. It is a psionic plague, Tamsin read, her fingers trembling. It is designed to sweep over the human population and erase a specific concept, the concept of resistance, the very idea of rebellion. He is not just going to erase their memories of dissent, Ash. He is going to erase their capacity for it. He is going to lobotomize our entire species. Halcyon's voice was, for the first time, stripped of its bravado. He is going to turn them into a placid, obedient livestock, a permanent slave race. My God! Ash looked at the directive. He looked at the name of the man who had signed it, High Chancellor Severin, the man who had killed his sister, the man who had just captured his friends. The cold, patient fire inside him, the one he had nurtured for 5 years, exploded. It was no longer a tool. It was a sun. The lattice flared, white-hot, and all he could think about, all he wanted, was to find Severin and burn the life from his body. He wanted to wrap his hands around the Chancellor's throat and squeeze until that placid, self-assured face turned to ash. He would use the lattice. He would tear his mind apart. He would burn the entire palace to the ground just to watch him die. Ash, Tamsin said, her voice sharp. She put her hand on his, which was clenched so tightly on the console that his knuckles were white. Ash, come back. He looked at her, his eyes wild, the lattice's raw power leaking from him. You go after him like that, she said, her voice quiet but iron hard. And you are dead. Morel and Oren died for that. For that thing. She pointed to the cord seed. Not for your revenge. Not for you to go out in a blaze of glory. They died for the plan. Do not you dare let that be for nothing. He looked at his hand. He looked at the evidence. The anger did not fade, but the white, hot core of it cooled, rehardening into something he could use. Justice. Not revenge. Justice. You are right, he said, his voice ragged. He wants to make us animals. We have to show him we are not. Just then, a public broadcast cut through their private comms. It was Severin. His face was a mask of sorrow and grim duty. He was standing over the body of Archivist Morel. Citizens, Severin said, his voice breaking with false grief. The terrorist, Ash Reed, has escalated his holy war. He has blasphemed the sacred song. In his blind, chaotic rage, he and his collaborators murdered this loyal servant, Archivist Morel, a human who had dedicated his life to the Dominion. This cannot stand. He is... Tamsin choked. That liar. He is blaming us for Morel's death. He has now declared Ash Reed a heretic. Halcyon's voice intoned, the data streaming in. A bounty has been placed on his head, authorized by the Purity Order. They are no longer just police. They are a crusade. Ash felt the floor drop out from under him. Severin had not just taken his friends. He had taken their legacy. He had turned Morel's sacrifice into a lie. He felt a sudden, desperate need to talk to Seraphine. He closed his eyes, reaching, but there was nothing. A wall of static. She was terrified. She had locked him out. She had helped him, and in doing so, had implicated herself in heresy. Now, she was alone, trapped, and he was the one who had put her there. Seraphine, I am sorry, he thought, knowing she could not hear him. He has me cornered. He sat in the dark cockpit of the stray dog, the most wanted man in the galaxy, holding a piece of evidence that could save his people, but with no way to use it. Severin had an army. He had the media. He had the religion. Ash had a pilot, an AI, and a stolen rock. Then, a private encrypted signal pinged the stray dog. It was not Seraphine. It was a location, a dead drop, in the oldest, most neutral part of the city. The message contained a single, repeating code, an old Aegis Guard code, Oren's code. It is a trap, Tamsin said immediately. No, Ash said, his heart suddenly pounding. It is not. It is from her. He went alone. Tamsin and Halcyon provided overwatch, but this was a meeting of ghosts. The dead drop was in the hollow of a statue, a forgotten Aurelid philosopher. Inside, there was no message. There was only a box, and in the box, on a bed of black velvet, was a simple, heavy ring of gold and crystal. It was the royal signet, the personal secret seal of the Empress herself. It was an object so powerful, so sacred, that to even hold it was treason. With it, Ash Reed did not just have a claim. He had the full legal and undeniable authority of the throne. He looked at the ring, the weight of it settling in his hand. Seraphine could not speak to him. She could not be seen with him. But she had just given him the key. She had chosen. She had declared her own war. And she had just bet her life, her crown, and the fate of the Dominion on him. The Amphitheater of Suns was a colossal, open-air bowl carved from a single mountain of living crystal. It was designed to hold 1 million souls, and on the day of the confluence, it was full. Representatives from every species, every client state, every vassal world, had gathered under the perfect, unforgiving light of the twin suns. The air was thick with the scent of 1,000 alien biologies, a cacophony of languages, and a fragile, mandated peace. High above them all, on a dais of suspended light, sat Empress Seraphine Kale. She was a flawless statue of turquoise and gold, her face serene, her diadem pulsing with a slow, regal light. Beside her, a step lower but radiating twice the authority, stood High Chancellor Severin. "Let the confluence begin," Severin's voice boomed, amplified by the arena's acoustics. "Let us celebrate 100 years of Aurelius harmony." And as if his voice were the key, the sound began. It was not music. It was a tone. It started as a subsonic vibration that rattled the bones, a hum that seemed to rise from the crystal of the amphitheater itself. This was the harmony engine, brought to full, terrible life. The thousands of hidden, subservient choir minds, those children in the slums, those harvested minds, all brought online. The sound grew, a single, perfect, swelling note. It was beautiful, and it was the most monstrous thing Ash Reed had ever heard. "It is online," Tamsin's voice crackled in his hidden earbud, a piece of technology so primitive the Aurelids would never scan for it. She and Halcyon were in the stray dog, lurking in a high, sensor-baffling orbit. "Ash, it is already sending the baseline. It is heavy." Ash stood in a shadowed archway, one of 100 such service entrances, dressed in the simple gray tunic of an archivist. He was invisible. He was a ghost. He clutched the cord seed in one pocket, and the Empress's royal signet in the other. They felt like a stone and a fire. The tone in the arena was now a palpable force. Ash could feel the mnemonic lattice in his head recoil, erecting psychic shields against the immense, flattening pressure of that single, dominant note. He watched the crowd. The Aurelids were in rapture, their cranial ridges glowing in perfect, synchronized time. The other species looked placid, a dull, compliant, bovine acceptance was smoothing their features. The harmony was taking hold. Severin stepped forward, his arms raised as if to embrace the million-strong crowd. "We gather today in the light of unity," he cried, his voice riding the crest of the engine's wave. "But even in this moment of triumph, the seeds of chaos, the noise of dissent, seek to undo us." Holographic images erupted above the dais, Ash's face, twisted by selective editing from the sacred combat, made to look feral and monstrous. Then, an image of Myrell's body, Ash's form digitally inserted, standing over him like a predator. The human heretic, Ash Reed, has murdered a loyal servant of the Dominion. Severin's voice was a mask of righteous grief. He and his human collaborators, in their jealousy, seek to destroy our peace. They have proven that their species is inherently chaotic. They are a plague of dissent. The crowd murmured, the placid expressions turning to a dull, guided anger. "But we have the cure," Severin roared. "We have the harmony. We will not let their noise infect us today. We will not just celebrate our unity. We will perfect it. I order the mandatory harmonization. We will bring peace to the dissonant, starting with the very source of the plague." On his word. The engine's note deepened, its psychic pressure increasing tenfold. In the control pits, Nyx Caldera, her eyes closed in ecstatic prayer, guided the wave. The first tendrils of the Himfall Protocol, the species-specific plague, began to unspool, targeting the human sector on the far side of the city. The time for stealth was over. "By the first oath and the law of the sacred combat, I say no." The voice was not amplified. It was not Aurelid. It was human. And it was raw. But it cut through the engine's song, like a shard of glass. Every head in the amphitheater, every placid face, turned, Ash Reed walked out of the service archway. He was just a man in a gray tunic, walking onto the vast, empty floor of the arena. He looked small, impossibly vulnerable. Severin's face, a mask of triumphant piety, dissolved into a sneer of pure contempt. The heretic, he dares show his face. He condemns himself, guards, seize him. A dozen Purity Order guards, their armor gleaming white, moved, converging on Ash from all sides. Ash did not stop walking. He continued his steady, measured pace toward the dais. "I hold the impossible wish, granted by Empress Seraphine Kale," he called out, his voice stronger now. The lattice was amplifying it, using the arena's own crystal structure as a resonator. The guard slowed. This was a complication. "He is a murderer," Severin spat. "His claim is void." "I hold the royal signet, given by the Empress's own hand," Ash shouted, and he pulled the ring from his pocket. He held it aloft. The crystal in its center caught the light of the twin suns, blazing with a fire of its own. The guards stopped, dead in their tracks. This was not a complication. This was a constitutional crisis. The entire amphitheater fell into a profound, breathless silence. The only sound was the omnipresent, thrumming song of the engine. "I invoke the right of immediate execution," Ash declared, his voice now ringing with an authority that was not his own. But the rings. "I name my impossible wish now, every eye, all 2 million of them," swung from Ash to the dais, to the Empress. Severin turned to Seraphine, his face a livid mask of fury. "Empress," he hissed, his voice a low, lethal command. "This man is a murderer and a heretic. This is a mockery of our most sacred laws. Order your guards to destroy him." Seraphine Kale sat frozen, her face pale, her hands gripping the throne. She looked at Severin, his face twisted with a rage that was anything but harmonious. Then she looked down, across the vast expanse, at the lone human figure who stood against the entire power of her empire, armed with nothing but her own secret gamble. She saw the man who had touched her mind, not with the engine's brutal force, but with a whisper of shared, desperate humanity. She rose to her feet. Her voice, when it came, was not the placid murmur of a puppet. It was the clear, cold, ringing command of a queen. "The High Chancellor speaks of sacred laws," she announced, her voice, like ashes, carrying to every corner of the arena. "Let us, then, abide by them." Severin's head snapped toward her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The law of the sacred combat is the first oath," Seraphine continued, stepping forward, away from the shadow of her High Chancellor. "It predates the order. It predates the engine. It binds the throne itself. The wish is his. He holds my signet. He will name it." It was a declaration of war. "Empress, you do not know what you are doing," Severin growled, his control shattering. "I know exactly what I am doing," Seraphine said, her gaze locking with Ash's across the distance. A silent, terrifying acknowledgement passed between them. "This is it. There is no turning back." She nodded. "Speak your wish, Ash Reed." Ash turned his gaze from the Empress to the roaring heart of the engine. He raised his hand, the signet blazing. "I wish for the right to self-consciousness for all subjects of the Dominion to be held inviolate." He shouted, his voice a raw, human counterpoint to the engine's perfect, sterile note. "I wish for all tools of forced mental synchronization, including this harmony engine, to be immediately sealed, and their creators held for public trial." It was done. The wish was spoken. The ancient law, the first oath, was invoked. Seraphine Kale raised her own hand. "By the first oath and the blood of my line," she declared, her voice shaking but resolute. This wish is heard. It is law. The legal command, backed by the unimpeachable authority of the throne, did not just travel through the air. It traveled through the system. It was a primary, root-level command that the Harmony engine, for all its power, could not refuse. The engine's song, that single, deafening, omnipotent note, choked. It sputtered. The psychic pressure over the amphitheater vanished, like a mountain being lifted. The engine's core light flickered, from a steady, blinding white to a sick, stuttering yellow. Across the amphitheater, 1,000,000 people gasped as one. They shook their heads, their minds suddenly, blessedly their own. The Aurelids looked confused, their rapture broken. The other species looked terrified, waking from a dream to find themselves in a nightmare. Ash had won. The engine was legally bound, muzzled. Severin looked at Seraphine with a gaze of such pure, unadulterated hatred that it was a physical force. He had been beaten. He was exposed. But in the control pit, Nyx Caldera had not moved. Her eyes were still closed. A small, serene smile played on her lips. Such a clumsy legal mind, she whispered to herself. The high priestess of the Purity Order, who had been communing with the engine's core, knew all its secrets. He wished for the engine to be sealed, she murmured. But he said nothing of the hymn. Her fingers moved across a hidden, secondary console. She bypassed the legal block. She activated the hymnfall fallback. It was a channel that did not run through the main engine. It was a secret, military-grade frequency, a psychic, black operation. There was no sound this time, no warning. Just a silent, invisible, high-frequency scream that erupted from the amphitheater's core and shot toward the heavens, aimed directly at the human slums. Ash clutched his head. The lattice did not just hear it. It felt it. It was a wave of pure, targeted annihilation. He felt the psychic impact as it struck the human sector, and he felt thousands, tens of thousands of human minds, their defiance, their anger, their love, their no-being systematically, surgically erased. "Tamsin Halcyon!" He screamed, not with his voice, but with his mind. A desperate, raw projection of the lattice. "It is happening. He is doing it. He is using a black channel, high in orbit." The stray dog shuddered. "Captain," Halcyon's voice, for the first time, was tight with alarm. "I am detecting a massive, directed psionic wave. It is not the engine. It is something else. It is... Oh dear, it is the hymnfall protocol. It is striking the human sector now." "Ash," Tamsin yelled into her comm, knowing he could not hear. "We see it. What do we do?" "Halcyon, Tamsin, listen to me." Ash's mental voice roared in their heads, a fusion of his mind and the lattice, empowered by the royal signet still in his hand. "He is broadcasting on a hidden frequency. I am going to find it. I am going to seize it, but I am not strong enough to broadcast a counterwave to the whole city. You are. You are my amplifier. Get ready to reroute all power to the main communications array. All of it." "You heard the man. Halcyon," Tamsin yelled, her fingers flying, shunting power from weapons, from shields, from life support. "Make this tin can a broadcast tower." "Aye, Captain, rerouting the main core." Halcyon boomed. "Master Reed, your mental voice is astonishingly clear. We are prepared to make a terrible racket." Back in the amphitheater, Ash. Reed closed his eyes. He ignored the guards, who were looking to Severin for orders. He ignored Severin, who was screaming at Nyx to intensify the signal. He ignored the chaos of the crowd. He became the lattice. He unleashed his mind. For 5 years, he had kept it coiled, a secret, a weapon in waiting. Now, he let it roar. He was not just Ash Reed. He was the sum of 1,000 forgotten sciences. He was the echo of 1,000,000 dead minds. He was a network of pure, complex, chaotic, human consciousness. He expanded, a psionic wave of his own, sweeping over the city. He tasted the himfall signal, that clean, sterile, evil frequency. He followed it back to its source, a psychic control node embedded deep in the engine's core, a place the legal order could not touch. And he found Nyx Caldera waiting for him. He felt her mind, a polished, seamless fortress of cold, pure belief, plague. Her mind whispered to his, "You are noise, you are discord. You must be silenced." "I am human," Ash roared back. And he did not fight her with logic. He did not fight her with power. He fought her with truth. He slammed the full, unfiltered, unshielded memory of Noah's execution into her. He made her see the blade. He made her feel his own suffocating, silent grief. He slammed her with Myrell's final, defiant sacrifice. He slammed her with the righteous, captured fury of Orin Hale. He hit her perfect, sterile, harmonious mind with the one thing her philosophy had no answer for: raw, messy, beautiful, agonizing pain. He felt her mind recoil. He felt her fortress crack. He felt a shriek of psychic agony that was not physical, but existential. Her perfect, clean world was suddenly stained with a truth she could not process. Her control of the himfall channel slipped, and Ash seized it. "Halcyon," he screamed with his mind. "Take it now." He did not just block the himfall signal. He piggybacked it. He reverse-engineered the carrier wave and inserted his own payload. He broadcast his own song. It was not the single, flat note of harmony. It was not the silent scream of himfall. It was the lattice itself. It was the sound of 1,000,000,000 different, conflicting, chaotic, wonderful human thoughts. It was the sound of Tamsin's sarcastic laugh, of Orin's rigid honor, of Myrell's dusty knowledge, of Noah's defiant, hopeful heart. It was a symphony of pure, unadulterated choice. The stray dog, now a glowing hot spike of energy in orbit, caught the signal from Ash's mind and amplified it, blasting it across the entire human sector, hijacking the himfall's own network. The two waves collided, the himfall's song of erasure and Ash's song of memory. In the slums, the people who had been slumping to the ground, their eyes glazing over, their very selves being ripped from them, suddenly gasped. They looked up, they were confused, they were terrified, but they were themselves. The erasure was stopped. The plague was neutralized. In the amphitheater, Ash Reed collapsed to one knee, blood trickling from his nose. The psychic backlash was agonizing, but he was grinning, panting. He had done it. He had stopped the main engine and the secret plague. He had won. He looked up. High Chancellor Severin was incandescent with a rage that was almost biblical. "He is a monster," he shrieked, his composure utterly gone. "An abomination, a psychic terrorist. He has just attacked the mind of a high priestess, guards. What are you waiting for? Seize him. That is a direct order." Nyx Caldera had collapsed and was now being tended to. Her mind shattered. The Purity Order guards, fanatical and loyal only to Severin, shook off their legal paralysis. Their leader was under attack. Their faith was under attack. They raised their plasma lancers, their loyalty to their High Chancellor overriding the ancient law. They moved to fire, but before they could, Empress Seraphine Kale moved. She did not run. She did not call for her own guards. She stepped down from the throne. She walked off the dais, her golden imperial robe sweeping the crystal floor. She walked, her face a mask of cold, absolute imperial fury, until she was standing directly in front of the kneeling, bleeding, exhausted human. She placed herself, her small, unarmored body, between Ash Reed and the raised weapons of Severin's private army. She turned, not to Ash, but to face her High Chancellor. "High Chancellor," she said, and her voice, though quiet, was amplified by the stunned silence of a million souls. "You will not order my guards. You have no authority here. The wish has been granted. The law is in effect." She raised one slender turquoise finger and pointed it directly at Severin's heart. "You, sir, are the one on trial, and I am the judge." The amphitheater was a vortex of a million silent screams. Empress Seraphine Kale stood as the eye of the storm, her body a fragile, turquoise shield for the kneeling human behind her. Her words, "I am the judge," hung in the air, a final, unbreakable barrier. The Purity Order guards were frozen, their faith and their law in absolute, paralyzing conflict. Their High Chancellor, the voice of their religion, had been defied. Their Empress, the voice of the law, stood protecting a heretic. High Chancellor Severin's face was a terrible sight. The mask of benevolent control had not just cracked, it had been incinerated. Beneath it was a creature of pure, undiluted ego, and it had been wounded. He looked at Seraphine, at her back, and his gaze was poison. "You," he whispered, his voice shaking with a rage so profound it was almost intimate. "You, who I built. You, who I protected from the noise." He turned his head slowly, as if against a great pressure, to look at Ash. "You did this, you... chaotic... filth." "Your reign is over, Severin," Seraphine said, her voice like ice. "You are charged with high treason, with the attempted murder of your Empress, and with the attempted genocide of the human people. Lay down your arms." Severin looked at her, and for the first time, he smiled. It was a genuine smile, a cold, terrible, knowing thing. "You think you have won," he said. It was not a question. "You think your law, your little wish, has any meaning. You think this animal has saved you." He raised one hand, not in surrender, but to his own console. "The law is a tool, my dear, as is faith, as is compassion. The only true power is the will to use them." He pressed a sequence. "You want a trial? Then let us have all the witnesses." The colossal, holographic screens above the dais, which had been showing the chaotic, terrified faces of the crowd, flickered. They all snapped to a single, stark image, a containment cell. Orin Hale was strapped to a metal chair. He was beaten. His black stealth armor cracked, one eye swollen shut. But he was alive. And he was glaring at the camera with a pure, undiluted hatred. "Orin!" Ash screamed, trying to get to his feet. But his legs were still weak from the psychic strain. "A loyal knight," Severin said, his voice now calm, almost conversational. He was back in control. He was uncooperative. He refused to be purified. He kept clinging to the noise. He kept shouting her name, "Noah, Noah, Noah." Such a tiresome, repetitive sound. Ash went utterly still. The blood drained from his face. Severin looked directly at Ash, his eyes surgical. "He reminds me so much of her, your sister. She was brought to me, you know, before the execution. She was so spirited. She had discovered the engine, just as you did. I offered her a place. I offered her a role in the coming harmony, a chance to save her people from their own chaotic instincts. She refused." He shrugged. A small, elegant gesture. So, yes, Severin said, his voice soft as falling ash. I gave the order for her execution. A necessary, regrettable, but ultimately clean solution. To eliminate the noise. He gestured to the screen, where Orin was now, being flanked by 2 purity guards, their energy batons crackling. Just as he will be a clean solution. Unless, of course, the heretic surrenders himself and his blasphemous mental thing to my custody, immediately. It was a checkmate. The world did not just turn red for Ash. It ceased. The amphitheater, the crowd, Seraphine, Orin, it all vanished. There was only one sound, one truth, one focal point in all of creation, the man on the dais, the man who had said, I gave the order. The mnemonic lattice did not just flare. It detonated. The cold, patient fire he had nurtured for 5 years. The one he had just cooled into justice, erupted into a supernova of pure, unadulterated rage. He felt a power surge through him that he had never known he possessed. It was the power to unmake. He did not care about the trial. He did not care about the wish. He did not care about justice. He wanted Severin's soul. Ash. No. Seraphine screamed, seeing the killing light in his eyes, the corona of raw psychic power that was beginning to shimmer around him. He took one step. The crystal floor cracked under his boot. He was going to tear Severin's mind from his body, and he was going to broadcast the man's screaming terror to the entire galaxy. Ash, wait. Do not. He wins. He wins if you do it. The voice was not Seraphine's. It was Tamsin's, screaming in his earbud. A desperate, tinny lifeline. He wants you to be the monster. He wants to kill Orin, and he wants you to give him the reason, Ash. Listen to me, do not let him stop. High in orbit, Tamsin Gray was fighting back tears of rage, her knuckles white on the stray dog's console. Halcyon, keep those engines white hot. If Ash gives the word, or if they so much as touch that night, I am going to slag the entire dais. I do not care about the fallout. My dear, ferocious captain, Halcyon's voice replied, all trace of aristocratic mirth gone, replaced by a cold, processing fury. I am currently calculating a micro-jump that would place us directly inside the amphitheater. The resulting shockwave would be, well, unsurvivable, but undeniably dramatic. Just be ready, Tamsin whispered. Ash stood, trembling, caught in the inferno of his own hate. Tamsin's voice, Seraphine's terrified face. Orin's image. It all warred with the primal, screaming need to avenge. He looked at Orin on the screen. The knight, seeing his face, his struggle, managed to spit a wad of blood at the guard, and he mouthed one word, Noah, not as a plea, as a reminder. Ash Reed took a breath. He forced the supernova back into his chest. He forced the white-hot rage back into the cold, dense star of his will. He would not let Severin turn Noah's memory, or Orin's life, or Mirel's sacrifice into a simple, savage murder. He lowered his hand. He chose Seraphine, who had been watching him with her heart in her throat, saw the moment he returned. She saw the choice, and a look of profound, staggering relief and trust washed over her face. She turned back to her High Chancellor. Her voice was not the ice of a judge. It was the fire of one. You are a monster, Severin, she said, her voice clear. You have confessed to murder. You are threatening a prisoner of war. You have done this before 1 million witnesses. You have desecrated the very idea of harmony. Severin laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound. And you are a child, a naive, sentimental child. Yes, I am a monster. I am the monster this galaxy needs. I am the surgeon who is not afraid to cut out the cancer. He spread his arms wide, his voice rising to a fanatic's shriek, playing to the confused, terrified crowd. You call it freedom. I call it chaos. You call it dissent. I call it the noise of a billion screaming, selfish minds, all clawing for their own piece of the universe. This is the disease. Freedom is the disease. I am the cure. He pointed a shaking finger at Seraphine. I offer peace, a single, unified, perfect will, a compassionate dictatorship. Yes, because I am the only one with the strength to be the dictator. I am the only one strong enough to bear the burden of being the monster so that you all can finally be quiet. He is lying, Ash said. His voice was quiet, but the lattice made it carry. He stepped forward, not toward Severin, but to stand beside Seraphine. He was no longer her shield. He was her partner. He does not offer peace, Ash said, his voice raw. He offers annihilation. He turned to the crowd, to the millions of faces, alien and Aurelid, watching in horrified silence. You want to know what his harmony really is? You want to know what his cure looks like? Then see it. He held up the black cord seed in his left hand. He held up the Empress's royal signet in his right. The wish has been spoken, he declared. The trial is now. He brought his hands together. He used the absolute, unshakable legal authority of the signet to unlock the cord seed. He used the full, networked power of the mnemonic lattice to read it. And then, he used the amphitheater's own holographic system, the one Severin had used to spread his lies, and he broadcast the truth. The screens flickered. The cold. Technical title of the directive flashed above them all, Himfall. And then, the data. The raw, unfiltered, damning data. They saw the genetic code, the specific marker identifying the human species. They saw the directive, signed by Severin, authorizing the creation of a psionic wave designed to erase, not memory, but the capacity for dissent. The very concept of rebellion. They saw the footage from the slums, the Purity Order priests calming the human children, harvesting their blank, empty minds as a background note. They saw the logs of Noah's investigation. They saw the order for her execution. They saw Morel's hidden files, his discovery of the truth, and the order, signed by Nix Caldera, to silence him. And finally, they heard the audio, Severin himself, in a private meeting with the Purity Order's inner circle. They are not a species. They are a resource. We will harness their chaos, and then we will turn out the light. They will be our servants, and they will be happy to be so. A sound rose from the crowd. It began as 1,000 gasps of horror. It swelled into a roar of profound, universal disgust. This was not surgery. This was not peace. This was not harmony. This was genocide. This was evil. The Aurelid nobility, the ones who had tolerated Severin's peace because it was orderly, were the loudest. He had not just lied to them. He had made them complicit in an atrocity. Aegis Guard. Seraphine's voice cut through the roar like a diamond blade. Not the Purity Order, the Imperial Aegis Guard. Arrest this man. Arrest him for high treason, for crimes against the Dominion, and for blasphemy against the light. This time, the guards did not hesitate. The true Aegis, loyal to the throne and the law, surged forward, their weapons leveled. Severin's purity fanatics, their faith shattered by the truth, offered no resistance. Severin was surrounded. He was defeated. His life's work, his perfect, clean world, was in ruins, undone by a human and a child. He looked at Orin's image on the screen, then at Ash, then at Seraphine. His face was no longer angry. It was just empty. "If I cannot have harmony," he whispered, his voice broken. "If I cannot have my perfect, quiet world." He looked at Seraphine, and his eyes filled with a terrible, final, bottomless hatred. "Then you will have nothing." Before the guards could reach him, he slammed his fist onto a hidden panel on his console. It was not the engine's main control. It was an auxiliary circuit, a failsafe, a dead man's switch, a feedback loop. "Ash, the engine." Seraphine screamed, her diadem flashing red. "He is overloading the core, in the vault of choirs, miles below them." The crippled harmony engine let out a final, psychic shriek. It was not a broadcast. It was a bullet. A focused, invisible, unstoppable lance of pure, destructive psionic energy, the void itself. Weaponized, erupted from the dais. It was not aimed at Ash. It was aimed at Seraphine's head. It was the ultimate, spiteful act of erasure. Ash Reed did not think. He did not plan. He did not weigh the costs. He moved. He threw himself in front of her, his arms wide, a man in a gray tunic against a god's wrath. He did not take the blast physically. He caught it. He opened the mnemonic lattice wide. Every pathway, every node. And he took the full, focused, annihilating power of the void directly into his own mind. It was an agony beyond all description. It was the sound of 1,000,000,000,000 stars dying. It was the crushing, absolute, infinite nothingness of the engine's void. He felt his memories, his self, being torn apart. He felt the lattice crack, his mind shredding under the colossal, impossible strain. He saw Noah's face, smiling at him. "It is okay." "Ash." He saw Morel, nodding, his eyes kind. "You were not an idiot, boy." He saw Orin, giving him a sharp, respectful salute. He held the line. He took the nothing and he held it, absorbing it, grounding it, letting it tear him to pieces to keep it from touching her. The blast expended itself. The circuit burned out. The psychic shriek faded. Ash Reed stood, trembling, for one single, impossible second. The world was static. All color, all sound, all light, gone. He turned, his movements jerky, a puppet with his strings cut. He saw Seraphine, her face. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, her hand reaching for him. He tried to smile. Then his legs buckled, and he fell. Severin was screaming, a high, thin sound as the Aegis guards dragged him from the dais. His power, his religion, and his mind all broken. The crowd was in chaos. In his earbud, Ash could faintly hear Tamsin's voice, just screaming his name, over and over. But he could not hear her. He could not feel the cold crystal floor. Then he felt hands. Seraphine was on the ground. She had thrown herself down, her imperial robes and her crown forgotten, pooling in the dirt. She was on her knees in the wreckage, and she was holding him. She pulled his head into her lap, her hands, shaking, brushing the blood from his face. He was dying. He knew it. The lattice, his bridge, his weapon. It was shattered. "Ash," he heard her voice, not in his mind eye, in his ear. She was weeping, hot. Real tears fell on his face. He tried to speak, a bloody cough. "You are free," he whispered. She leaned down, her face close to his, their foreheads touching. Her diadem was gone, knocked aside. It was just her, Seraphine. "We are," she whispered back. "A promise. We are. Stay with me, please. Just stay with me." He closed his eyes. The sound of her voice, the last, beautiful, chaotic note he heard before the world went black. The first sensation was not pain. It was quiet. Ash Reed had spent 5 years with a constant, low-grade hum in his skull. The mnemonic lattice. It had been his companion, his weapon, his burden, and the secret, roaring engine of his grief. Now, it was silent. The silence was a vast, terrifying, empty room. He opened his eyes. The light was soft, filtered through walls that seemed to be made of pearl. He was not in the amphitheater. He was in a high-security medical bay, reserved for the imperial family. The air smelled of ozone and antiseptic chemicals. "Well, look at that," a dry, familiar voice drawled. The sleeping behemoth finally wakes. Ash turned his head. It felt like moving a bag of wet cement. Tamsin Gray was slouched in a chair that looked far too expensive for her, her feet propped up on a diagnostic console. She was pointedly ignoring a no loitering sign. "Tamsin." Ash's voice was a raw croak. "Himself," she said, not smiling. She looked tired, her usual manic energy replaced by a deep exhaustion. "You have been out for 6 days. 6. You have any idea the kind of docking fees a capital-class terrorist vessel racks up? I am going to have to bill your new girlfriend. And she is the Empress. So I am adding a 30% surcharge for systemic oppression." "Seraphine," Ash whispered. A jolt of panic. "Is she—" "She is fine," Tamsin said, her voice softening just a fraction. "A lot better than you are, you magnificent idiot. She saved your life. You caught the bullet. She caught you. It was all very dramatic." Halcyon cried. "It was messy. And Severin. Oh, he is in the deepest, darkest, most shielded hole they could find." The compassionate dictatorship defense did not play well with the crowd, especially after you broadcast his "let's lobotomize the humans" greatest hits. "Orin," Tamsin's face tightened. "He is alive. Severin did not have time to finish. Orin is. He is in bad shape. Ash. But he is alive. He is in the next room over. He is already giving orders to the guards. The man is insufferable. And I think I am in love." She shook her head. "And Nix. Your girlfriend's guards got to her. She is alive, too. Just gone. Catatonic. You really, really broke her brain. Ash, they are holding her for a public, transparent trial. Same as Severin." "Morel," Ash said. It was not a question. Tamsin's face fell. "Yeah, we got his body back. The Empress gave him a state funeral. First human to ever be interred in the Garden of Echoes. She said he was a hero of the Dominion. Orin and I, we were there." She looked away. "He was a good man." Ash closed his eyes, the weight of it all pressing down. He had won, but it felt exactly like losing. "The engine, sealed," Tamsin said, ticking a finger in the air. The confluence scattered. "The purity order is—" "Well, it is not. The moment your broadcast hit, it evaporated. Turns out, most people are not actually in favor of genocide. It is a very niche market. Severin's fanatics are in custody, and the rest are all claiming they were just in it for the cool, symmetrical architecture." Ash tried to sit up. A lance of pain shot through his head, so white and blinding that he cried out. It was not a normal headache. It was a structural wrongness. "Easy, hero," Tamsin said, jumping up. "The doctors said your brain—" Well, they used a lot of very long, very irrelevant words. "The gist is, you took a psychic nuke to the face. The thing in your head, the lattice. It is broken." "Broken," Ash whispered. touching his temples. "Cracked," Tamsin said. "Like a glass that has been hit with a hammer. It is still there. But it is not whole. They said you are lucky to be alive, let alone sane." Ash closed his eyes, focusing inward. The silence. It was not silence. It was just shattered. He could feel the lattice, but it was in 1,000 pieces. The connection severed, the power gone. He was just a man again. An empty, aching man. He let his head fall back onto the pillow, a wave of despair washing over him. He had lost his weapon. He had lost his connection. He had lost. "No, you have not." The voice was a whisper. It was not in his ear. It was in his head. It was female. Warm and impasse. Scroll to chat, enter to send. He had not heard in 5 long, agonizing years. "You are not empty, Ash. Noah," he breathed, his eyes flying open. "What?" Tamsin said, looking around. "Who?" "He can hear me," the voice in his head said, a note of surprised, tearful laughter in it. "Oh, my God. Ash, he can finally hear me." "Noah," Ash whispered again, tears welling in his eyes. "Where are you? Am I dead?" "No, you big idiot," she whispered back. The voice was faint, an echo from across a vast canyon, the cracks in the lattice, the damage. It was not just damage. It was letting something in, or letting something out. "I am right here. I have always been here. You were too loud to listen." "Ash," Tamsin said, her voice sharp with alarm, her hand on her sidearm. "What is going on? What are you hearing?" "It is her," Ash wept, clutching his head. "Tamsin, it is her. It is Noah. She is in here." The implications, the mystery of it, were too vast, too overwhelming. But one thing was clear. The lattice was not just a weapon. It was a prison, or a vessel. And by breaking it, Ash had not lost his past. He had just found it. 3 days later, he was on his feet. The galaxy had not waited for him. Empress Seraphine Kale had moved with a speed that belied her youth and shattered the court's expectations. In the 72 hours following the confluence, she had issued 3 royal decrees that formed the bedrock of a new dominion. The first was the Harmony Engine Act. The engine was not just sealed. It was to be dismantled, its core components, including the cord seed, placed in a joint human-Aurelid trust, forever beyond the reach of a single power. The second, and more radical, was the Provisional Consciousness Covenant. It was the formal, legal version of Ash's wish, guaranteeing the cognitive sovereignty of every individual in the Dominion. It made forced psionic manipulation an act of treason. The third was the formation of a reconciliation committee, an emergency body co-chaired by human and Aurelid representatives, tasked with healing the rift Severin had created. Its new interim chief of Imperial Security, Orin Hale. Ash found him on a balcony overlooking the capital, his arm in a sling, his good eye staring at the city with a look of profound, exhausted disbelief. "You know," Orin said, not looking at Ash, "they gave me a new office. It is large. It has a view. I hate it." "It suits you, Commander," Ash said, a small smile playing on his lips. Orin snorted. "Do not call me that. I am just a grunt who did not know when to die. And you are the most dangerous man in the galaxy." He finally turned to Ash, his good eye searching. "How is your head?" "Loud," Ash said. "And quiet. It is complicated." He did not elaborate on Noah. He was not ready. "Good," Orin said, nodding. "Complicated is good. Complicated as human. He clapped Ash on the shoulder with his good hand. Mirelle would have been disgustingly proud of you. And Noah, well, she always knew you were a menace. Where is she? Ash asked. The Empress. Where do you think she is in the throne room, surrounded by 100 old, turquoise, terrified lords who are all trying to figure out how to put the genie back in the bottle? Are they? They are trying, Orin said, his voice grim. But the bottle is shattered, and the genie, well, she is holding a hammer. Go see her. Ash, she has been asking for you. Tamsin Gray, meanwhile, was holding court in the most opulent bar in the city, her feet once again propped up on a table. She was arguing, quite loudly, with a very stressed-looking Arelid in reformer's robes, the new interim prime minister. I am just saying, Tamsin was arguing, as Ash approached, that my fee for averting species-wide psionic lobotomy is, by necessity, quite high. I am thinking a full trade and commerce exemption for, say, 50 years. Captain Gray, the Prime Minister said, his cranial ridges flashing in pure agitation. That is preposterous. That is piracy. That is negotiation, Tamsin countered. And if you want to talk about pirates, let's talk about my new best friend, Halcyon. Ah, Master Reed. Halcyon's holographic form appeared on the table, looking incredibly smug. A pleasure. I trust you are feeling more robust. The Empress's government, Halcyon continued, not waiting for an answer, has seen fit to grant my request. I am, now, officially, an honorary citizen of the Dominion, and, more importantly, I have been granted permanent free docking rights at any imperial port. A small but just reward for my pivotal role in, as I have termed it, the grand theatrical rerouting of the Heretic song. It has a nice ring. Do you not think he is insufferable? Tamsin said fondly. Go on. Ash, go see the Queen. Someone has to be the responsible adult. Ash left them to their negotiations. He found Seraphine not in the throne room, but in the Star Garden, a place high on the palace spire, where the crystalline roof was open to the true, unfiltered light of space. She was alone, her imperial robes gone, replaced by a simple, dark blue shift. Her diadem was off. Her turquoise skin seemed softer in the starlight, her cranial ridges pulsing with a faint, tired human light. She heard him approach, but she did not turn. They wanted to pose me, you know, she said, her voice quiet, conversational. Who? Ash asked, moving to stand beside her. The old ones. The ones who believed in Severin's harmony because it was clean. They say I have succumbed to the noise, that my actions, my trust in you, a human, was an act of appeasement, a weakness. They are gathering their strength. And the reformers. They are terrified, she said, a small, bitter laugh. They support me, but they think I have gone too fast. They want me to slow down, to compromise. They want me to be what I was. She finally turned to him. Her eyes were ancient. I have no allies. Ash, I have only convictions, and I am so very, very tired. He did not know what to do. He was an archivist, a janitor, a broken psychic. He was not a comfort to empresses, so he just stood there, and he was quiet. She looked at him, and the weariness in her eyes was replaced by a soft, hesitant light. You are not like them. You do not want anything from me. I am not sure what I am anymore, Ash said. I am just here. I am glad you are, she whispered. They stood in silence for a long time, the chaos of the galaxy swirling beneath them. Your wish, she said suddenly. The one you made. It was brilliant. Ash looked down. He had been waiting for this. It was a stopgap, a legal trick. It saved my life, she said. It saved your people. It was more than a trick. It was not the real one, Ash said. Seraphine turned, her eyes narrowing. What? The impossible wish, Ash said, his voice low. The one from the sacred combat. I never used it. Seraphine stared at him, her mind clearly racing, a new, dawning horror on her face. But you invoked the right. You named your wish. I granted it. No, Ash said. I invoked the right, but I never named the impossible wish. I named a lesser, secondary wish. The ancient laws of the combat allow for a request for trial, a plea for justice. That is what I did. I asked for a trial. I presented the evidence. You, as the judge, passed sentence. It was all legal, all binding, but it was not the wish. He reached into his pocket. He had kept the tattered, blood-stained sash he had been given, the token of his victory. The impossible wish, the one that bends reality, the one that demands a sacrifice from the throne itself. I still have it. It is still mine to call. Seraphine looked, terrified. She was not an empress facing a subject. She was a woman facing a man who held a weapon that could rewrite her entire world. Ash, she said, her voice a bare whisper. What is the wish? I do not know, he said, and it was the truth. I thought I did. I thought it was revenge. Then I thought it was justice. Now, he looked at his hands. Now, I have my sister whispering in my broken mind, and I have a galaxy that is on fire, and I have you. He met her gaze. I do not know what I am supposed to do with it. Seraphine took a step closer. She looked at the old, powerful, terrified men who wanted to depose her. She looked at the reformers who wanted her to be weaker. And then she looked at this human, this man who had held a wish that could have made him a king, a god, or a monster. And he had waited. A wish like that, she said, her voice trembling, is not a tool. It is a burden. It could remake our entire order. Ash, it could forge a true, lasting peace. She reached out, her slender, turquoise fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Or it could shatter every last bit of hope we have left. Ash did not move. He was a man made of fault lines, and she was the only solid ground he could feel. The old men are right about one thing. Sir, the old men are right about one thing, she whispered, her eyes searching his. I have succumbed to the noise. Is it so bad? He asked, his voice rough. It is beautiful, she replied. And in the starlight, high above the broken, terrified, hopeful city, Seraphine Kale, Empress of the Aurelian Dominion, rose up on her toes and kissed Ash Reed, the human heretic. It was not a flowery kiss. It was not a kiss of romance novels or grand space operas. It was a kiss of shared, crushing burdens. It was desperate, and it was clumsy, and it was real. It was two people, stripped of their titles and their armor, holding on to each other in the dark, terrified of the dawn. Whatever you do, she murmured against his lips, her own fears, her own crown, her own power, all laid bare. Whatever you choose, be careful. Ash Reed. He held her, the silence in his mind, for one brief moment, filled not with ghosts, but with her. I do not know how, he admitted. Then we will learn, she said, together. The Grand Council of Light was a trial, unlike any in the history of the Aurelian Dominion. It was not held in a dark, paneled room, but in the vast, shattered expanse of the Amphitheater of Suns, open to the light of the twin stars. The judgment of one man had become the judgment of an entire system. Seraphine Kale presided, not from the Sunstone throne, which sat empty and inert, but from a simple chair on the main floor. She was not an empress judging a subject. She was the first signatory of a new accord, holding a public hearing. To her left sat Orrin Hale, his presence a silent, ironclad promise of the new security. To her right sat representatives from a dozen species, their faces grim, and Tamsin Gray, who had refused all official titles but insisted on one for Chief Auditor of Tyrant Property, and had brought Halcyon via a massive holographic projector. In the center, alone, stood Severin. He was not in chains. He was immaculate in his simple, gray robes, his cranial ridges pulsing with a slow, serene light. He looked, maddeningly, like a philosopher who had been interrupted in his work. Ash Reed sat in the front row. His mind was quiet, utterly, unnervingly quiet, save for the faint, intermittent whisper of the voice he now knew was his sister's. The cracks in the lattice were healing, but they had changed him. He was no longer a weapon. He was a vessel. "Hi, Chancellor Severin," Seraphine said, her voice clear and carrying. "You have heard the evidence, the full, unredacted Himfall directive. You have heard the testimony of Commander Hale. You have seen the files of the late Archivist Morel. You have confessed to the murder of Noah Reed. Do you have anything to say before this council renders its judgment?" Severin looked at Seraphine, his gaze lingering on her, a mixture of pity and contempt. Then he turned his eyes, his cold, dark, ancient eyes, and he found Ash. A small, bloodless smile touched his lips. "You," Severin said, his voice soft, yet it carried across the silence. "You, the human. The ghost from the archives. You think you have won." Ash said nothing. "You think you have unraveled my great work," Severin continued, his voice taking on the melodic, reasonable tone of a lecturer. "You think that by stopping the Himfall, by displaying my private logs, you have saved the galaxy from peace from itself." He laughed. It was not a maniacal sound. It was a dry, cold, academic chuckle. "You speak," he said, pointing at Ash, "of your mnemonic lattice. You wear it like a badge of honor. You used it as a cudgel, a clumsy, chaotic human tool. And you do not even know what it is. A cold dread, deeper than anything he had felt, settled over Ash. Beside him, Seraphine leaned forward, her hands clenching. "What do you mean?" Ash asked, his voice flat. "What is it, heretic?" Severin mocked. "A tool, a weapon, an ancient mystery." He shook his head, the smile fading. "It is a masterpiece. My masterpiece. And you were just the delivery system." He turned to the council. "You accuse me of murder. The charge is imprecise." He laced his fingers behind his back. "The Purity Order preserves many ancient things, rituals, philosophies. I am a pragmatist. I recognize some of these rituals for what they were: a forgotten, profound science. The science of sculpting consciousness itself." He looked back at Ash. "Your sister, Noah, she was brilliant, so much noise, so much chaotic, wonderful energy, a fire raging in a dry forest. I studied her. I admired her. And I knew I could not let that fire spread." "You killed her," Ash growled, rising halfway from his chair. Orrin put a hand on his shoulder. "Killed her, no," Severin said, his voice dropping. "That would have been a A waste. The execution. The public display that was theater. Necessary theater to convince you, to convince the world, that the problem was solved. "What did you do?" Seraphine whispered, her face pale. "I did what I had to do," Severin said, his voice ringing with a sudden, righteous fervor. "The himfall was a surgical tool, but all surgery has risks. What if I lost control? What if my own creation, my harmony, became a true monster? A runaway void. I needed a failsafe, a balance. If the harmony engine was the ultimate expression of order, I needed an equal, opposing force. I needed the ultimate expression of chaos." He pointed directly at Ash's head. "I did not kill Noah Reed. I translated her. Using the ancient ritual, the forgotten science, my acolytes and we sculpted her. We took her entire, defiant, brilliant, chaotic consciousness, and we poured it into the mnemonic lattice. We made her my failsafe, a living bomb of pure human descent, locked in a cage, which I could release if my own system ever failed." The amphitheater was silent. Tamsin's face was a mask of pure, murderous horror. "The mnemonic lattice," Severin finished, his voice a triumphant whisper, "is the digitized, weaponized mind of Noah Reed. I did not kill your sister, Ash. I desecrated her. I turned her into the very thing she fought against. I made her a god." Ash did not scream. He did not breathe. The world dissolved. His 5 years, his grief, his patient, cold, burning rage, the whispers in his head, the power he had wielded. It was not his. It was her. It was her screaming, trapped, desecrated soul, which he had been using as a weapon. He fell to his knees, his hands clawing at his temples. He was not just a man seeking revenge. He was a grave robber. He was a monster. "Get it out," he choked, a low, animal sound. "Get her out of me. I am sorry. Noah, I am so sorry." The silence in his head, the one he had cherished, was now the ultimate accusation. He had been alone with her. He had carried her, and he had never truly listened. He collapsed, curling in on himself, a man utterly, finally broken. "Ash." The voice was not a whisper. It was not an echo. It was clear. It was female. And it was ringing in his mind with the force of a bell. "Ash, stop it." He froze. "Get up, you idiot," the voice said. It was Noah's. It was the voice he remembered from his childhood, the one that always knew how to pull him from his moods. It was full of life, and it was full of her. "You heard him," Ash thought. "His mind a ruin. What he did?" "I know what he did," she replied, her mental voice surging with an energy that was not his. "I was there. He is a monster, but he is also a fool. He thinks he sculpted me. He thinks he controlled me." Ash slowly, painfully, got to his feet. He looked at Severin, who was watching him with a look of cold, clinical curiosity, as if observing a failed experiment. He built the cage. Noah's voice sang in his mind, and he felt the lattice, the her, shifting, the cracks sealing, not with the old cold power, but with a new, warm, human will. He put me inside. He thought he had made me his failsafe, his anchor of chaos, but he was wrong. Ash met Severin's gaze. "I saw him." Noah continued, "But I also saw you. I felt your grief. I felt your rage. I felt you turning into a monster, just like him. So I made a choice." "What?" "What choice?" Ash whispered aloud. "He wanted me to be his anchor," she said, her voice full of a love that shattered him and rebuilt him all at once. "I chose to be yours. I chose to be your anchor of humanity. You stupid, reckless, wonderful man. I was the one who held you back. I was the one who pushed you toward Seraphine. I was the one who would not let you become him. He did not sculpt me. Ash, he just aimed me. Ash looked at Severin. The man was a god of tyranny, but he had made one fatal human error. He had underestimated the person he had tried to turn into a thing. Ash Reed straightened. The grief was still there. The horror was still there. But it was no longer a void. It was fuel. He turned to Seraphine. She was watching him, her face a mask of terror, hope, and awe. "The impossible wish," Ash said, his voice clear and loud. The council erupted. "What the trial is over." "He is mad and I'm not," Ash said. He walked forward, past the prisoner, until he stood before Seraphine. He held up the tattered, blood-stained sash of the sacred combat, the one he had kept. "My first wish was a legal maneuver, a call for a trial. This is the real one, the one that binds the first oath." Seraphine looked at the sash. She looked at Ash. She looked at Severin, whose face, for the first time, was ashen. Severin had not known about the loophole. He had not known the real weapon was still on the board. "Name it," Seraphine said, her voice shaking. Ash held the sash aloft. "I wish for the full and complete restoration of Noah Reed, her mind and her body. As she is," he paused. Then his voice rose, filled with the power of his sister's will and his own. "And I wish for the permanent dissolution of all mechanisms, technological, legal, or political, that allow one mind to forcibly control or subsume another. This includes the final, permanent restructuring of the Harmony engine. And it includes any and all laws of imperial succession based on a unison of minds." The old Aurelid lords surged to their feet. "Treason! He is destroying our heritage. He is dismantling the empire. He is saving it." Seraphine's voice cut through the noise. She stood, her own choice made. "This is a just wish, a necessary wish." She placed her hand on the sash, which now pulsed with an ancient, forgotten power. "By the first oath and the blood of my line, this wish is heard. It is law." Ash placed his hand over hers. He felt the lattice. "Noah, reach out." She did not touch his mind. She did not touch Seraphine's. She touched their bond, the silent, chosen trust between them. The amphitheater shuddered. The ancient, dormant technology, the program that the Aurelids had mistaken for ritual, came online. It was not a destructive force. It was a creative one. It was a command, sent on a quantum frequency, to the most secure, most forbidden place in the Dominion, the ancient gene banks. It found a DNA sequence. It found a neural map. It found a command for a high-speed, autonomous bioprinter. In the center of the amphitheater, a section of the crystal floor retracted. A column of pure, white light rose, and within it, a pod of translucent, pearlescent material. It was happening. It was real. "This is not possible," Severin breathed, his voice a broken, defeated thing. "This is heresy. This is chaos." "No," Ash said, watching the pod, tears streaming down his face. "This is humanity." The pod opened, hissing steam. Inside, a woman lay, curled, identical to the last image he had of his sister, identical to the face in his dreams. Ash's mind screamed. It was an agony 1,000 times worse than Severian's blast. The lattice, the her, was leaving. It was a torrent of data, of memory, of love, of soul, ripping itself from his consciousness. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. The stream of light, invisible to all but him, poured from his mind into the body in the pod. The woman's hand twitched. Her eyes fluttered. She took a deep, shuddering, real breath. Her eyes snapped open. They were brown, and they were brilliant, and they were alive. She sat up, her movements new, clumsy, and wonderful. She looked at her hands. She looked at the crowd. Then she looked at the kneeling, weeping man on the floor. A slow, brilliant, chaotic smile spread across her face. "Hi, big brother," Noah Reed said, her voice rough. "You look terrible." The aftermath was a beautiful, necessary chaos. The Harmony engine, its core directive shattered, was not destroyed. Under the guidance of Tamsin Gray and a very smug Halcyon, it was jailbroken. Its code made open source. It was no longer a tool of control. It was a voluntary, decentralized network. A true bridge. The old guard of the Auralid nobility, their power base of mental succession shattered, did not flee. They were forced to talk. In the center of it all was Severin. He had watched Noah's resurrection, his entire philosophy, his life's work, his ultimate sacrifice, and his ultimate desecration, undone by a single act of human love and an ancient, legal loophole. He was a broken man. Seraphine did not execute him. Ash did not demand it. The new Reconciliation Committee, co-chaired by Orrin Hale and a reformed Aurelid elder, passed sentence, not revenge. Restorative justice. High Chancellor Severin was sentenced to life, a life of service. He would be the chief administrator of the Outer Worlds, his brilliance now dedicated not to controlling, but to rebuilding the very societies his policies had crippled. It was a long, slow, and human penance. Nyx Caldera stepped forward of her own free will. Her mind, shattered by Ash, had been slowly pieced back together. Her faith in unison was gone, replaced by a simple, terrifying, and profound need to help. She volunteered to lead the dissolution of the Purity Order, not to destroy it, but to transform it, from a cult of control to a monastic order of public service, dedicated to helping those whose minds had been touched by the engine. The revolution had been chaotic, and it had been, in the end, kind. Weeks later, Ash stood in the Star Garden. His head was his own. It was quiet, quiet. He was an archivist again. Seraphine found him there. She was not wearing a crown. She was wearing the simple robes of a signatory, her hands smudged with ink. "The Constitution is a mess," she said, a small, tired smile on her face. "The Xylos want grazing rights. The humans want better music. And Halcyon is insisting on a clause recognizing artificial intelligences as artistically superior. It is wonderful." "And you?" Ash asked, turning to her. "You are not Empress." "No," she said, standing beside him. "I am something better. I am a representative. I have to run for election." She said the words as if they were a strange, new flavor. "It is terrifying." "You will win," he said. "I know." She smiled. She looked at him, her gaze soft. "And you, they offered you. Everything. A title, a place on the council." "I told them no," Ash said. He looked at his hands. "I am not a lord. I am not a politician." He smiled. "I am a janitor, and a librarian, and a brother," a new voice said. Noah walked up, a data slate in her hand, her eyes blazing with a million new projects. "Tamsin and I are building a new trade route. Halcyon is writing poetry about it, and Orrin keeps threatening to arrest us. It is perfect." She hugged Ash, a real, solid, physical hug. "Do not be late for dinner." She ran off, already shouting into her communicator. Ash and Seraphine were alone. "She is," A lot, Seraphine said. She is, Ash agreed, his heart full. So, what will you be? Seraphine asked, her hand finding his. Morel. He always said the lattice was a bridge, Ash said, his voice quiet. Severin used it as a cage. I used it as a weapon. He intertwined his fingers with hers. I think I just want to be a builder. Severin built walls. I want to build a bridge right. I want to build the network that Morel dreamed of. The one that is voluntary. The one that connects us, but does not chain us. Seraphine leaned her head on his shoulder. The twin suns were setting, and the stars were coming out. They were not an empress and a heretic. They were not a ruler and a subject. They were just two people, two architects, looking at a galaxy of work to be done. They were free. And for the first time, in a million chaotic, discordant, beautiful human voices, the galaxy was finally singing in harmony.